All right, welcome to another week of H Radio 223 Part-Timers. Hope you had a great Easter week. You know, obviously hear that I'm sick and I will be blowing my nose. I'll not throughout the recording, I guess, but I will switch the mic off just to be a little bit considerate. Please, yeah, just please excuse there's not much I can do for my throat at the moment. Okay, we're going to do something really awesome and move into radio interviews, which is part two of three from Keller's book, Beyond Powerful Radio. And that's from chapter 15, page 179 to 186. Okay, what I'm going to do also is I'm going to be looking at, we're going to use Larry King as a case study, and I've chosen an interview with him and guess who? Donald Trump, but back in 1987, right? Where this, I wouldn't say it's a trending video, but on YouTube, you're gonna find that it's popping up quite a lot because guess what now? Donald Trump is president, right, for the second time. Yeah, it's quite a long interview. I'd like to play it also. Just enjoy it. Larry King is genuinely, or was, should I say, he's passed away, I think, what was it, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. One of my favorite, absolute favorite, like, like TV, or should I say, just broadcasters, journalists in general. What a legend, what an absolute legend. So much to learn from him if you do want to pick up some skills, right? So let's look at the introduction to this particular lesson for journalists, talk show hosts, and music personalities. All of us have to we have to actually conduct radio interviews or interviews for podcasts or for pre-recordings or for TV or whatever it may have been, right? It is genuinely one of those mandatory things that you need to learn how to do when you are preparing to go on air or preparing for a career in journalism, right, or broadcasting. Interviews are a necessary part of the information that we do gather for both news and talk, right? Why? Because there's somebody else out there that knows better than you understand? In other words, an expert professional, somebody that is either doing it, that knows a lot about it, that was there instead of you, and so can now obviously what's the word, communicate that information, right, to your listeners. So I love the interview aspect of radio just because, again, it adds another dimension, another layer to your show when you do have a second or third or fourth voice, depending on if you're doing a round table or you're having them on the phone or they're in studio. And again, there's just it just I like radio that isn't flat. I do understand, as we have said before, that certain shows do, they do require not much from the presenter. Like we said, there those night shows and sort of music oriented shows that are straightforward, like a bit of a classics or whatever it may be. And living from one of those, it's going to happen quite often. So we say, right, anyway. So powerful interview can one obviously rivet or return to audiences or to the audience there. Well, let me just put it in my own words, right? We can change, obviously, as we'd like to make a little change in our listeners' lives with every piece of content that we do put together and put out there, or include in our show. And of course, just like boring content, there can be boring interviews. We have spoken, I think we've touched on whether or not how you should decide on whether or not the guest is going to be a good one. Again, it should be your number one choice. They should have something to say and they should be there for the right reasons, right? To the right context. Remember your guests, whether rock stars, artists, politicians, experts, specialists in their fields, or regular people with stories to tell, may be nervous when they show up. 100% you're going to come across a guest that is nervous, that is anxious. You can actually see them kind of shaking. They're reading directly off their notes, and so they sound robotic. It's up to you. you have to give them like a bit of a talk, make them feel comfortable beforehand, right? And explain to them, look, this is a conversation just like you would have, just like I would say to you, when while you're learning and while you're learning to be on air, you would have to be told it's a conversation. There's not much to have to be concerned about unless you start making mistakes. And I get that, we're all human, whatever. Just give yourself a moment to collect yourself and you'll be fine, right? The experience can be terrifying to civilians, police, and broadcasters too, who may be nervous and they're going to forget what they want to say because they know that there's limited time, there's limited context, and they prepare a lot, just like a good broadcaster would, just so that they're not caught out with nothing to say, or they haven't, there's certain things like three or four, five or 6 points that they have to cover to be able to get their message across. Anyway, they can become unsure of where they're heading with a point and becoming boring. Talk in circles, right? Talk endlessly and say absolutely nothing over there. Let's go to number three. I move along. Okay, the purpose of an interview is to get the interviewee to open up. And how we do this is just like a listener, but okay, let me leave the listener out of this right for the moment. With a guest, you can't come in and just like, let's say there are some certain sensitive questions or questions that are kind of controversial, whatever it may be, you've got to start with that because you've got to build a quick rapport. Quick, hey, is the key word. A quick rapport on air so that they feel very comfortable to open up, and also they are expected to quote unquote open up about certain questions that you have pre-briefed them about, right? So that there aren't any surprises and there aren't any, look, I've got no comment for and no comment for, oh, I don't want to really talk about that. I told you, uh, I think in a previous recording, how I got kind of mad, man, when which is one of my recent guests said to me, like literally on air, I'd rather not talk about that. I want to talk about it. It's not the man. Uh, you have to establish control and authority because this is your playground, right? The city is your playground, and the obviously like your play toy, should I say, is your show, right? Okay. So just make sure that if there are any quote unquote red flags that you have to have some kind of pre-notion or whatever it is, like foresight to be able to say, listen, I think that they might bail on me when it comes to this particular question. So I need to maneuver myself really around them just slowly opening up, just exactly like I said before, like we would with our guest, sorry, not our guest, our listeners, right? A good interviewee knows that in order to get the most out of any interview, the person being interviewed obviously has to feel comfortable. Um, Obviously we have to make sure, really, this is an important point, that we test the mics. We can test the mics, I'm saying, on a pre-fade, in other words, off air, but throughout the interview, the guest seems to wonder because they don't have the knowledge of a mic technique, and so like they speak kind of off mic, and they don't understand, or because they're not knowledgeable. This is a uni or bi-directional, omnidirectional mic, or whatever it may be, and that's how it works. So they sound tinny, or they sound like they're in another room, or whatever it may be. And you know what? For me, I'm not. I'd rather stop them in their tracks during the interview. Just reposition the mic. I don't. I because reposition the mic, it might sound a little awkward. Again, like I said, I don't care. I'd rather have them speak clearly, and I'd rather have them be heard quite nicely, so that obviously the listeners have a better experience. The listener will not care about that sidebar interim break where you take just to position their mics a little better, right? So they should feel heard also in the sense that as obviously a broadcaster, like listen to them. That's why you have them in there, and that's why they expect That's what they're expecting when they come in, right? To actually be heard from their point of view or their experience or their contribution, right? So if you catch your guests looking at their watch, there's a problem because during a good interview, time should actually fly. There could also be that is it's a good point. They could also just be in a rush, or they could be like whatever it may be, but they dedicate their time to use their best dedicate period, right? All right. One of the best things that you can do to start your interview off well is to introduce your guest, please, in a compelling way that'll excite your audience. So, in other words, really think of the hook again, think of those crumbs, and think about how it is, please, that you do give the context is so important. Why is this person here? Why do they have the credentials to speak as soon as we begin our conversation back and forth? And that is really important when you are building kind of that monologue in the beginning, right? It's up to you as the interviewer to present your guests so that the audience cares about what they will have to say, right? Grab their attention with powerful storytelling, and obviously you want your audience to stick with it and not tune out. Okay, so and maintaining control is really something that will come with experience, right? You're going to get a lot of guests that do bulldoze you. Once again, I've said this before, they come in with their own agendas, their own ulterior motives. They want to use the platform for their own, again, kind of like selfish needs or whatever it is. And you know what? Like, I think as a new jog, you feel intimidated by not the guest, but by obviously performing. I'm sorry, this is a small one. It's a small one. Sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry. Oh my word. Ah, winter coming. Anyway, okay, so as I said, with an amateur jog, it's like I said, you're not that you are intimidated. You are aiming for perfection in the show. In other words, you don't want chaos. You don't want some kind of flow to be interrupted and stuff. And so we somehow allow the bulldozing to happen, right? Which is something that you really need to overcome, right? That that obviously comes with your experience of going through those moments and knowing that that could be a great interview if only I did something or stopped them or like just brought it back home to what we are talking about, and so on and so forth, right? So dealing with this can be tricky, right? One method to get them to talk is getting it a little bit. One method to get them to talk is getting it a little bit wrong. So CNN's former nightly host Larry King is notorious for asking the dumb question, right? He claims he doesn't read the books of the author he's interviewing and that he doesn't do a lot of show prep. He lies, he does. Well, I mean, his producers do, and so does he, right? Okay, because he is so well informed. Um, and I mean, if you are interested in his audiobook, his audio biography, right? I would love to send that and share it with you. It's such a great, it's I think about 3 hours long, and you'll absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite things to go and listen to over and over again. Right? It talks about Larry talks about his own beginning in radio and how he obviously mastered the art of conversation and obviously interviewing, etc. Right? Larry King's key, Larry King's key is to ask questions members of his audience would ask if they had the chance to interview the guest. Like we've talked about Oprah, these very big giants within I say our broadcasting history over and across the globe have these things in common, these particular skills in common. And so you know that from them, I'm not saying be like them. I suppose to a certain extent I'm saying be like them in the way that use and develop that particular skill to make sure that that interview always hits home. Uh, again, not to brag, I definitely have mastered the obviously the whole construct and the art craft of interviewing, because my biggest tool or biggest strength within an interview is knowing how to keep someone talking about what I think the listener wants them to talk about, right? And also, and definitely, I know how to connect with a person almost immediately, right? And it's not because I'm causing magic, but it's about the wording, it's about your temperament, it's about your professionalism, and again, making them feel valuable because they're there for a reason, right? So this is an example of obviously one individual, Larry King, and how he works. And it's important to note that while it has been effective for him, show prep is still important. He does prep, right? Just as a sidebar. Okay, I'm going to go to a video of him in just a moment. Just let's talk about more control. The secret to conducting a great interview is the ability to draw out powerful stories and gather new information in an interesting way where you also get to know the person. The more relaxed and at home that person feels, they're going to be more relaxed like they would in any other social situation with you to talk and open up to you and just have a better conversation. Okay. All right. So there, I'm just going to stop that share. Let's head off to YouTube quickly. Just want to make sure I've got the right thing. Yeah, there it is there. Okay. So let's say that Donald Trump, I don't want to be president. I thought it might be interesting for us to all watch this. Right. Okay. So enjoy.
Politician these days than America's most grandiose and controversial builder. When he disagrees with a matter of policy, he does it in a big way. Today, he sunk $95,000 into a full-page newspaper ad appearing in many papers criticizing the administration's foreign policy. Rumblings in the Trump camp point as far as the presidency. Could the Manhattan magnate be eyeing the White House, or is he just calling a bluff? Are you a Republican, Donald?
I'm a Republican, yes.
So if there were politics, it would be as a Republican.
It would be, I guess, as a Republican, but I don't see that there will be politics.
Why the ad, then? I mean, you said you wanted to say it. There's a lot of ways you can say things. I guess an ad is one way. You could have called up shows like this who would have been trying to have you come on. Why now?
Well, it was very easy. I was tired, and I think a lot of people are tired of watching other countries ripping off the United States. This is a great country. They laugh at us. Behind our backs, they laugh at us because of our own stupidity and the leaders. I mean, what we have a Persian Gulf situation. You saw what happened today. Billions and billions of dollars are being spent on getting oil for Japan, and they're not paying anything for it. Essentially, they're paying nothing for it. We have tankers going back and forth that our men are protecting, losing their lives. I mean, they're losing their lives, Larry. We're spending billions and billions on protection, and those tankers are going over to Japan. It's just preposterous. I watched the Kuwaiti oil minister the other day laughing as he was explaining how much money they intend to make with the Bridgeton, which has been a total disaster, the Bridgeton. And I said to myself, isn't that a shame? He's talking about how much money they're going to make, and here we are. He's smiling and laughing. Why don't we get some of it? Why is it that we're protecting? We have frogmen, we have helicopters, we have aircraft carriers, and all sorts of ships all over the Persian Gulf, so that this man and his little group can make a lot of money. I think it's ridiculous.
Well, one of the reasons we say we're doing it is because we've been doing it, and that all previous presidents have endorsed doing it. I guess the kind of thinking of an entrepreneur is because somebody else said it was right doesn't make it right, right?
Larry, the country is losing $200 billion a year. $200 billion. This country cannot continue to lose $200 billion. Japan is one of the wealthiest machines ever created. Saudi Arabia, and it's not, hey, let me tell you, I'm a big beneficiary of Japan. They buy my apartments in spades. They're fine people. But they're laughing to themselves as to what's happening over here. We're not kidding ourselves. They're laughing to themselves, Larry, as to what's happening with this country.
But Donald, a lot of people feel the way you feel, and a lot of people maybe with as much money, or certainly some people with as much money feel the way you feel. Why did you go public?
Because somebody had to, Larry. I watch it again, and it's a very important point. Japan is a money machine. Saudi Arabia is a money machine. Kuwait, these are money machines, the greatest ever created. The United States is, if it were a corporation, it would be bankrupt. It's losing $200 billion a year. For years now it's been losing that. What right do we have to go out and defend? Why aren't these countries, these wealthy money machines, paying us for the defense of their freedom and their nations? Why aren't they paying us?
We are kind of the world's keeper, are we not?
I don't believe we should be. I think Japan should certainly make a contribution. Japan is one of the reasons they're so successful is they don't have to worry about defense, because why should they worry about defense when the United States will do it for nothing? I mean, it's crazy. Saudi Arabia, I mean, you saw what happened with Saudi Arabia. We're going through the Gulf. We have old-fashioned, obsolete minesweepers. We ask Saudi Arabia for the use of their minesweepers, which are the best made, the most modern, the best, and they say no. Who are they to tell us no? We're not going to give you our minesweepers. It's ridiculous. They're only there for the sake of us as far as that's concerned. We are protective of Saudi Arabia. They should pay for that.
Are we going to be hearing more from Mr. Trump on issues like this as we go along?
I really don't know, Larry. This is an issue that's been bothering me. It's been bothering a lot of people that I know, and I think it's an issue that had to be brought out to the fore. The concept of America financing and paying and losing lives for countries that won't even allow us to use their ships. And these are the countries that in 24 hours they'd be wiped off the face of the earth if it weren't for America. It's ridiculous.
By the way, a couple of other things, then we'll take some calls for Donald Trump. Is it true that you're going to go to New Hampshire in October at the invitation of Mike Dunbar, who's heading a group called Draft Donald Trump?
Well, I was asked about 3 or 4 weeks ago whether or not, by a very good friend of mine, whether or not I'd go to New Hampshire. That's turned out to be now a much bigger deal than I had ever anticipated. And perhaps, I don't know, I am going. I made the commitment to go. I made the commitment about 3 weeks ago, and I will go, yes.
You will go, even though you realize now, in just stepping foot in that state, people are going to presume things.
Well, they can presume whatever they want. I have no intention of running for president, but I'd like the point to get across that we have a great country, but it's not going to be great for long if we're going to continue to lose $200 billion a year. You're going to get into the early 90s, 1990, 1991, and the whole thing's going to blow, because this country cannot continue to support Japan and Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and many other countries that are much wealthier than we are. We're not a wealthy country. You can't be a wealthy country when you're losing the kind of money that we're losing.
We're a debtor country. A couple of other things, then we'll break and take some calls. Don, why don't, there are some who said this, why don't people like you, you and people like you, build low-income, medium-income housing?
Well, as far as building housing is concerned, and low-income housing, I've built a lot of it. I haven't recently, but I've built a lot of it. I built senior citizens housing and beautiful, beautiful housing. I built low-income housing, and I'm very proud of it. The policies of the government right now just don't allow it, because really what's happened by the tax incentives that were taken away and by the lack of federal programs. You used to have federal programs, you don't have them anymore. And it really doesn't allow it to be done on any economic basis. And it's a pretty rough situation. I mean, you just don't have subsidized housing, low-income, moderate-income housing, and it's a really big problem.
And if they did, you would do it?
I would absolutely love to do it. I'd be honored to do it. I used to do it. I mean, people think of me in terms of Trump Tower and all the other jobs. I'm just as proud. I mean, you folks don't talk about it because maybe it's not as interesting to some people. I am, frankly, just as proud of all the low income and the senior citizen housing I built.
Well, so far, it's the only buildings I've asked about.
Yes.
Casinos. You're very big in Atlantic City. You're going to Vegas?
Well, I don't think so. I'm not looking to go to Las Vegas. I have stock in companies that are in Las Vegas, and I'm not particularly looking to do it. We've done a great job in Atlantic City. I'm very proud of the results. We have just about the best casinos, I think, anywhere in the world as far as that's concerned, hotel casinos, and we're very proud of it, and that's really pretty much where I want to be.
What's the drive, Donald, that you don't have to do this anymore, that keeps you wanting to build more and more?
Well, it's a creative process. I enjoy the creative process. I like building things. I like building beautiful buildings. I like doing other things. I've been doing a lot of other things. It's a creative process, Larry, and it really gives you something to do with your life, and it's something that you can feel fulfilled and proud of when you're finished, if you do a good job.
Do you want a break because of what you do? In other words, are you saying to New York and other places, I'll come in and do this, please give me what you will not give someone else?
No, I'm not looking for breaks. I think I probably would have a harder time getting breaks. I mean, you talk about
I just want to pause. Can you see this guy's okay? You can see I'm definitely a fanboy. How amazing is Larry? Like he's just you know what I love about Larry, and I know that if people that do watch or have watched or throughout the decades of watching Larry, is that he's just so like he's not tactless. He's like dead to the point, dead to the point. You see, if he wants to make a comment he made earlier. It's just like whatever Trump had said, and then he had made his own statement, kind of as a bypass. That it was a big statement to make, and then moves on. Doesn't sit there looking for sensationalism. He's literally building the context. I love it. I love it for sensationalism to possibly and quite probably occur.
About Ed Koch. The man tried to fight me on so many different things, and he's failed. In each case, he's failed, and that's nice. I like beating it. I really get a charge out of beating Ed Koch, and you know, it's just one of those things. But he's fought me on a lot of different things. He's consistently fought me, and he's consistently lost.
In other words, you don't want more or less than anyone else would get.
I don't want more or less than anybody else now.
Donald Trump is our guest. He spoke out quite vociferously today in the New York Times and other papers in a major statement on American foreign policy. He's the noted, of course, builder, and we're going to take your phone calls for Donald Trump. Our guest, the famed developer Donald Trump of New York. We're ready to go to your phone calls. Redlands, California. Hello.
Hello, sir. Comment and a couple of quick questions. I think it would be really a big mistake for the United States to attempt to tax its allies for protection, because that would demote them to the role of a client state of the United States. And secondly, I think it'd also be pretty unconstitutional, because the Congress has the authority to raise armies and support them with taxes for the defense of the United States, not to be hired out as a mercenary force.
All right, Donald.
Well, number one, it wouldn't at all be unconstitutional. And number two, if you're talking about taxing, I'm not talking about taxing. I think that people should make a contribution, and a major contribution, other countries, to this country for what we're doing to keep their freedom and to keep them free and to allow them to be free. And would you rather have that, or would you rather see this country to go totally bust in another couple of years because this country cannot afford to defend Japan and every other country in the world? It just cannot afford it.
It wouldn't be a tax. It would be more a payment in kind, like for landing space at airports, right?
It would be, you could call it anything you want.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest, I don't care what it's called, but I think that Japan and all of these other countries should certainly pay. They can well afford to pay.
Donald Trump's our guest. This is Larry King Live. We go to Toronto. Hello.
Yes, good evening, Larry. My question for Mr. Trump, it's a two-part question relating to international trade. Is the solution to the American trade deficit to restrict trade through protectionist policies, or to train American business to be more aggressive and entrepreneurial? And I'd also like to know if Mr. Trump would support a Canadian-U.S. free trade agreement.
Well, I think, just to answer your first part, I believe it's very important that you have free trade. But we don't have free trade right now, because if you want to go to Japan, or if you want to go to Saudi Arabia or various other countries, it's virtually impossible for an American to do business in those countries. Virtually impossible. And I have many friends, they go over to Japan, they can't open up anything. They need approvals, they need this, that. In the meantime, Japan comes over to this country, they're buying up Wall Street, they're buying up all of Manhattan's real estate, they're buying, which is fine as far as I'm concerned, because they're paying premium prices that put people like myself in a very good position if I ever want to sell something. So the fact is that you don't have free trade. We think of it as free trade, but you right now don't have free trade. And I support anything having to do with Canada, because I think they've been one hell of a good ally.
Do you do any business in Canada?
I do a little bit of business with Canada, and the Canadian people are wonderful people, and they're with us 100%, as opposed to many other people in the world. We support so many countries that, I mean, you walk out on the airport and they say, Yankee, go home. They have signs all over, Yankee, go home, and we're giving billions. We don't give anything to our farmers. Our farmers are dying. There's no question about it. Farms that were in for generations and families, they're being taken away. The homeless are all over the streets of the major cities. The sick and the problems. And yet we'll give billions of dollars in defending countries that have 5 times more money than we can ever hope to have. It's ridiculous.
By the way, if you put up one of your properties for sale, let's say Trump Tower, would the Japanese be at the head of the line bidding for it?
They would be very tough to compete with them or some other countries, some other European countries right now, because of what's happening with the dollar and the yen and the mark and the various other currencies. But the Japanese are at the forefront, and it's very, very tough to compete with them in terms of the purchase of anything in this country that's prime.
Middletown, New York, for Donald Trump. Hello.
Hi, Mr. Trump. Knowing that you have differences with Mayor Koch in New York, would you be interested in a mayoral race against him?
No, I don't want to run for the mayor of the city of New York. Being mayor of New York is certainly not an easy job, but it's a job that's very possible to be done correctly. We have a man who's not a competent mayor. I think most people that live in New York know that. He's been bad for the city. He's losing a lot of business in the city, and he shouldn't be. And he's really been a pretty big disaster. And I think that probably over the next period of time, something's going to come out where he will not be the mayor of the city of New York, hopefully much longer.
Should the mayor of the city be someone who knows business?
Well, what we need is competence. We don't have that. We have a one-line artist. That's all he is. And, you know, he's got sort of one-liners that are okay but not great. And that's all he's got going, and it's a problem. It's a problem because we have the greatest city in the world. It's an incredible, incredible city, and I'm proud of the city. And I hate to see the job that he's done because it's really been pathetic.
You have said you have offered to build a huge metropolis on the west side. NBC, apparently, officials at NBC told me a couple of years ago that that's where they'd like to move. And now there are rumors that NBC may leave 30 Rock and go to New Jersey. But I had a top NBC official tell me he wanted to move to your plan on the west side. Where is that now?
Well, I think we have a real good chance. You know, again, no thanks to Ed Koch, but I think we have a real good chance of getting NBC to stay in New York, and we're fighting very hard for it. We have a very, very good shot, and I anticipate that they'll be making the decision over the next 4 or 5 weeks. And it'll be a very, very big decision, very important to the future of New York City.
Lowell, Massachusetts, for Donald Trump. Hello.
Yes, hello, Larry.
Hi.
Donald, first of all, I want to commend your stand in regards to the other nations should take part in the expense of helping the Persian Gulf.
Thank
But my
you.
question to you is the following. You are a very wealthy man and have many contacts. Why can't you do more for the hungry and the homeless in New York?
Well, I think it's a very good question, and I'd like to. The problem that you have, and you have a major problem, the problem that you have is it's such a big, big dilemma. You really need federal government assistance, not even city government. The city governments have to be competent, capable, etc. But you really need the federal government to step in. That's why it bothers me so much that when we give this kind of money to the wealthiest countries in the world, and yet for our own people, the homeless, the sick, the poor, the farmers, who are really going through hell right now, those people we're not helping. And why should we? I think it's ridiculous. And this country shouldn't be raising taxes. We ought to be lowering taxes. We should have a surplus, not a deficit. Because the kind of money that I'm talking about, and you can call them, as the gentleman before said, you can call it a tax, you can call it whatever you want to call it. But those countries should be paying us major billions of dollars, and you won't have any deficits whatsoever, and then we'll be able to help the poor and the sick and the homeless and the farmers and everybody else.
Donald, what were you hearing today after that ad appeared? What were people telling you? I imagine you got tons of calls.
It was unbelievable, to be perfectly honest. I put the ad in thinking maybe a couple of politicians would see it, and maybe they'd say, hey, you know what? That happens to be a great idea, and he happens to be right. We've gotten thousands of phone calls. We've gotten tremendous support. I've never seen anything like it. I have literally never dreamt that this kind of reaction could have happened from taking a newspaper ad essentially saying, hey, we're making a mistake and this is what we should be doing.
West Patterson, New Jersey. Hello.
Hello. I'd like to, hi, Larry. I want to ask Mr. Trump a question about the Japanese, and if they keep on buying up all the real estate in Hawaii and in New York, won't it come to a point where they will be dictating our policy and we'll be afraid to move against them? I think it's almost to that point now, isn't it?
There's a book out, Don, that says that already exists, that Japan is, in a sense, wielding the rope with us.
I believe it already is true to a large extent, and there's no reason for it to be. If we had the right people, if we had the right people with the right instincts and business ability, there'd be no way that that could happen. And that's why I hate to see what I see. By the way, I like the Japanese very much. I do tremendous amounts of business with them. They do very well as far as I'm concerned. A man just bought a $21 million apartment in one of the buildings I own.
A what?
A $21 million. He bought 7 apartments, a Japanese man. Wonderful man. He bought 7 apartments, put them together. He's building a $21 million apartment. That's without the cost of construction, by the way. Plenty of money. I like them very much, but they laugh at us. They're laughing at this country and the way the country is being managed. And they should be laughing.
Donald,
they should be laughing.
In a $3 million apartment, if you got apartment 3B, and 3A is hanging a picture, you wouldn't hear that in 3B, would you?
Well, hopefully not in the kind of buildings I live.
Okay, now it's just a little question from someone.
Okay, I know.
Okay, Ocean City, New Jersey. Hello.
Yeah, Larry and Donald, how are you doing? I have a comment and a question, then I'll hang up and I'll listen.
Go ahead.
First off, I really enjoy having Mr. Trump here. As a 32-year-old business person myself, I think he is a tremendous role model for young people like myself that look at him and write down their goals and strive to be better. That's the comment. The question is, I've always felt that NATO and West Germany, I mean, we have all those troops over there. I feel that they should pay their way. And then my second question is, and I'll hang up, is what other topic is near and dear to his heart? Thank you.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I agree with you on NATO. I agree with you on other countries. I don't want to single out Japan. I don't want to single out Saudi Arabia, but these are countries that people understand the kind of wealth we're talking about, and I will single them out. But there are many other countries and taking tremendous advantage of this, including NATO. If you look at the payments that we're making to NATO, they're totally disproportionate with everybody else's, and it's ridiculous. As far as other causes that are near and dear, this is the cause, because if we can solve this, then we're able to take care of something that I consider to be ultimately of ultimate importance, and that is the homeless situation, that is the farmers, that is the sick. We don't have any money. This country is busted. And it's busted because we're doing things that we shouldn't be doing. If we had business ability in this country, we'd be making lots of profit, so-called surplus profit. And that profit, that money, could be going to defend and I literally mean defend our homeless and our poor and our sick and our farmers. And that's where we ought to be spending the money, not giving it to countries that don't give a damn for us to start off with.
Give me a development forecast for the rest of the 80s, good or bad, for buildings.
I think it's going to be good in New York City. It's been bad in a lot of other places. It's going to get bad unless we do something about this horrible, horrendous deficit. You cannot continue to lose $200 billion a year. It's going to be so bad that people will never, I really believe this could be much, much worse, unfortunately, than recession. This could be the step beyond. I hate to use the word depression, but if we don't solve the $200 billion a year loss, which is exactly what we have, this country is going to have some very, very serious problem in the early 1990s.
One other thing, could the next presidency be a one-term presidency because of that?
I think the next president of the United States could have some very, very, very serious problems. It's going to be, I think, a very difficult presidency because of the problems that we're talking about right now.
And you don't want it to be Donald Trump?
I do not want it to be Donald Trump, but I do want the problems to be solved, Larry.
Thanks, Donald. See you in New York.
Thank you, Larry.
Hope you enjoyed that. I certainly obviously did, as you might have gathered by now. Okay. We'll try and work through the last bit of the lesson without having to stop and start blowing my nose. Okay, that's super cool, right? Super cool. I know you're agreeing with me. I know that you know that that was a great interview, and there's so many things we could take from that. Larry King, as stated in the previous slide, is just one of the great interviewers that we do have around this globe. And, we also have to look, for sure, obviously in our own country, and really be critical to say who actually is like an international standard broadcaster, and journalist at the end of the day. So that's for you to sit back and think about, decide, let me pick out 3 people that I believe, are this way, but go look at some of their interviews, go write down what you think is and does make them stand out, and then be like, okay, great, these are things that I can also use while I'm learning how to obviously conduct and construct, my own interviews. Okay, so in interview, the star is the topic or the guest, obviously not the host, because they are the ones bringing in the value, bringing in that new dimension, bring in the content, bring in the opportunity of conversation. Remember, interesting is key. I did skip over listening is key because we've done that already, right? If you can't listen to somebody, there's no way that you can have a deep, immersive, and meaningful conversation with them. So again, just to kind of rinse, cycle, repeat some statements over there. The opening questions will depend on the circumstances because the context is very important. Why is that person there? So, for example, you might have just briefly skimmed over some of the related videos that were there around Donald Trump, in particular with his wedding tour. What's her name? Melania. I don't even know. Whatever. Like, I'm not that interested in their personal life, right? And then him coming back for whatever reasons, and who knows, whatever. There's a reason why we have that guest in studio, and so we take that sense of approach to developing, obviously, a conversation that is interesting for our listeners. Here's some tips. Please be available and flexible. If the interview time has to be changed, then be gracious, right? See if you can work for the show. Still keep it if it is like it's really going to make your show better, then accommodate them. So if you want to make sure that you get a copy of the show, well, you know that all stations have to record the shows regardless, because we need to have that in case the BCCSA needs to kind of proof and us to defend maybe a claim against us or complaint against us. Predominantly, it's for that reason. We also do have to send out recordings for our, like advertisers. No, maybe on their side. I've maybe even mentioned before that there will be someone that's allocated to monitoring that our ads are, or their ads, should I say, are played on our station. But also, I feel like that's just a little bit too much to expect from our clients. So we do record all the shows as a station, put them into an archive, and make sure that obviously someone can obviously pull the audio whenever they need to. If you are an author, please don't repeat the name of your new book on your website over and over. Listeners will get annoyed. Please, and this goes for anyone that's come in to promote something. Musician would love to obviously promote the new song or the new album, the LP, the EP, whatever it may be. Allow them to do so only at the end, right? Free advertising is not a thing that we'd like to obviously propagate. We want to be able to know that people must pay, 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 pay. If you want to make money off us, then you need to obviously pay your way too. Forget there is a larger audience, right? So you will be much more effective if you speak to the host. So this is the interviewee. So not the person, not the host, the interviewee. Hey, okay, right. Speak to the host one-on-one. Try to relax, be yourself. Radio is personal and intimate, and we know obviously all the good reasons why you should be doing that. Please watch your language as well, and also. So this again goes to where I'm taking it from the interviewer. You right? Tell them, listen, like please don't get out of hand. I find it even in myself, the context there when you are so on air, it's easy to control, like any cuss words or any profanities or any kind of bias or whatever it is. You become very used to knowing how to like switch your on and off button there. But when you are recording something while you're on air live, you're recording something for, let's say, TikTok or Instagram, we might also slip up with certain cuss words, or just be careful, just double check where you are and who you are and what you're saying. But keep to the point. If you don't have anything interesting to say, ask the host for another question. I think that's a bit silly. I don't. If you have, if the guest has to chat to you about ask me another question. Oh, that says a lot about the host, right? Don't bring lots of notes into the studio. Read them from there. It's really not a good idea. You sound awful, 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 awful. Ask for what you need so that the host and the station can provide it. Do you understand the process? So, has it been explained to you how we're going to run this particular interview? Can you stop it at any time? Is it being recorded or is it live, direct, where anything goes? Have you eaten? Yeah, sure. I mean, fair enough. You need to also be hydrated as well. That's super important. Because, again, as a guest, those nerves will get you like a dry mouth, and you'll start kind of like swallowing over your words and kind of doing that a lot, and all that horrible stuff that will just lower the quality of your contribution to the show. All right, so I'm not going to go over those because I do believe that you can look further into their side, the guest side of. But more importantly, let's focus and close up with you. Thoughts for the hosts and interviewers. Forget the long hellos. Absolutely, because it's irrelevant. You can ask them how they're doing how's their week gone, or whatever it may be. It takes 2 seconds to do that. Please move on. It really is irrelevant. Listening is the key to successful interviews. Don't stick to a list. Often the best. Next question comes from the answer, the last one. Try not to ask yes or no questions. Only ask them if they are a springboard to a deeper question. And if you didn't get enough for an answer, don't be afraid to ask it again. I do this often. Like when a guest decides that they are going to, in that moment, not answer the question, they kind of like defect off, to another. So you just repeat it again. I did ask you this. I want to ask it again because I didn't get that answer, and it's super important that you do answer that so that I can continue further. Again, servicing my listener. Curiosity counts. So if you're genuinely curious about the topic, the interview is going to go well, right? Ask dumb questions. So don't be embarrassed if you don't know all the answers, specifically because here's the thing why this makes um, uh, all the difference. If I'm interviewing an expert professional, I am not everything to everyone. Does that make sense, right? I can't be, man. I don't have the doctorates, I don't have the PhDs, I don't have the whatever it may be, right? So obviously, like you do prepare yourself to become knowledgeable to hold a conversation, but also everyone else doesn't have that doctorate either, right? So do make sure that you are asking throughout the interview stuff that contextualizes or questions that do contextualize certain complex obviously complex ideas or construct or whatever it may be, and get to the point. Please don't cut out the interview with chit chat, right? Okay, unless there's purpose for it. All right. So control the interview, steer the subject in a better direction if the interview starts to get boring. Just kind of like reboot it, right? Respect responses. Everyone is entitled to an opinion. That's why you also had them there. And end your interviews cleanly, right? Do a short goodbye. You don't need to recap points made during the interview. You really don't, because you now have covered it. So it's rinse, cycle, repeat for no reason, and it's repetition in a bad way for radio. I'm not going to. I'd like you to to tell yourself, let's read from Carl Faber on listening on page 186, right? And then I will see you in the next lesson. So cheers, bye.